do both?
Well, if you're going to do both, then you have to be in another window. A lot of times I'll use my iPad or I will use my MacBook to
Okay.
have it there so that I'm not getting feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just do it from another.
Do you want me, Suzanne, do you want to just take, like, I'll say good morning, take the first slide, I'll hop off, and then I can monitor the chat for about 20 minutes?
That'd be just fine. And so I'll get us going whenever we're ready.
Yep, you can start it, and I'll get off. Well, I'll just say good morning, welcome, JCPS, and then you can just, I'm going to turn this over to Suzanne and our team, and then you go. I'll hop off. I'll monitor the chat because I can do that up until 10 minutes before it ends.
Well,
Okay, sounds good.
it's 9:30, so do you all want to get started?
We're ready.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sade Graves, and I am a digital innovation leader for Zone 1 schools. This morning, I'm here with a wonderful panel of teachers talking about designing choice boards, also with the amazing Susan Price. And so we are ready to get started whenever you all are. Good morning, ladies. For right now, I hear we have a gentleman joining us too. So I'll just say good morning, ladies, for right now. But as he joins us, then we'll welcome him as well.
Good morning. Thank you, Sade. And I'm going to go ahead and get our presentation going. Susan, you are good to get started. Thanks so much.
Hi. Good morning, JCPS. First of all, I want to say happy Teacher Appreciation to all of our JCPS teachers out there. We certainly appreciate your hard work and just take some time this week to celebrate yourself. So today we are talking about designing choice boards in schools. Of course, we have with us Suzanne Kramer, and she is going to facilitate this session this morning, and I'll be monitoring the chat. So have a great week.
Good morning. So since our first iteration of this professional learning opportunity, Susan and I have had the opportunity to work with several teachers and schools and learn about the excellent work they're doing around choice boards. For those that are new to us this morning, we just wanted to share just some background information. So we know that choice boards are a graphic organizer that provides students with a variety of tasks and activities, and they're aligned to standards and to the JCPS curriculum frameworks. And so one reason to use choice boards in the classroom is that they enhance student agency, engagement, and they offer differentiated pathways. So some of the activities are for practice, some are sort of formative tasks, some are more summative. And one benefit is that students get to choose how they're demonstrating learning. There's more connection to interdisciplinary opportunities, and students are more accountable for their work, and there's a multitude of products that students can come up with from one task. So when we first began designing choice boards in CDLI, we had one box sort of for one discipline. And since then, we have come to the conclusion that these are the most powerful when they're designed around a common theme or a compelling question. And so Ryan New and I did a presentation a couple weeks ago, and we're repeating it Thursday and Friday this week, wherein we showed a proof of concept of a high school choice board designed around a compelling question, where then each box had a supporting question that drove to that compelling question. And later this week on Thursday and Friday, we're going to have examples for middle and elementary school as well. And so what this does is it creates more coherence for students. They see how their learning is connected and interdisciplinary in nature. And for families, it's one sort of assignment that faces the family. So they're not getting, 6 emails from Google Classroom a day from every teacher, every discipline. And so the first step, if you are working on a team to design an interdisciplinary choice board, is to identify that core concept, the academic goals, and then plan backward from those learning objectives. And then, of course, we want those activities to be of different levels of complexity. We might have things that students could do independently. We might have things that take a longer amount of time, such as passion projects or genius hours that need to be facilitated by the teacher. And so this morning we have with us from J-Town Elementary, Shelly Scott, who's going to share what they've been doing with choice boards around compelling questions. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Like Suzanne said, I'm Shelly Scott, and I'm the AIC at J-Town Elementary. I think it was that first day of digital learning on that April 6th, I attended a session with Suzanne and Ryan about this whole notion of building a choice board around a compelling question. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be an awesome way to really put social studies and science and all of the different content areas together and, really bundle those different standards together so that kids could really get involved in their own learning. And so I was from a third grade classroom before becoming the AIC. So I went to what I knew best and what I felt most comfortable with. And I started with this whole notion of the compelling question and what rules make us better off. And so I started building this based on the model that Ryan and Suzanne had created in their presentation, and sent it back and forth with Ryan, and he worked with me on that, and we came up with this particular choice board that you can see right now. And what I'd like to do next is bring in maybe place the icons for what probable backpack artifacts could result as students work through the different choices that they have before them. But just the whole bundling of the different content areas made the most sense to me, and I felt that it could really take off from here. So I'm working on completing more of those choice boards centered around the compelling questions at third grade, and then move on to the different grade levels.
Thank you so much. And now we have with us Carrie Gray from Carrick Elementary, who's going to share their work around how they develop choice boards for their kindergarten classes.
Thanks, Suzanne. Good morning, everyone. So just like Shelly, I also happened upon Ryan and Suzanne's first PD that first week about creating choice boards around compelling questions. And at Carrick, we had already decided that we were going to create choice boards for our students at every grade level. So that first week, I invited teachers to either experiment a little bit with the compelling question choice board or go with the choice board that we had been introduced to previously, which was, as Suzanne mentioned, just creating different activities around each content area in a separate box. There wasn't really a connection or a theme for that type of choice board. Well, I had a bunch of teachers that were really excited and wanted to get started with that right away. So that week we jumped in, and it's kind of been a process since then to help us get better at creating these choice boards around compelling questions. So this is just an example of where we started in kindergarten, and I think this was about a week or two ago. So really, we've even made progress since this choice board was created. But as you can see, we worked really hard. We're trying to, keep in with the standards that we want, keep in alignment with the standards that we have chosen to focus on at this time, as well as bring in all of the disciplines. So on this choice board, you'll see where math didn't really have a connection to our compelling question for this board. So as we're working through this process, my guidance to teachers has just been, if it doesn't fit yet, don't force it. We're just going to keep working through that process until we get all of our disciplines matching and coordinating in some way. So right now, over this past week, I feel like we've even made bigger shifts in creating boards this way. And for this example with kindergarten, you see we don't have a summative. And one of the reasons for that is as we started to dive into the material, we found there was so much that teachers were able to create these choice boards to last about 2 weeks. So the summative for the compelling question would be on the end of our second week. So that's been kind of our process and the way we're working it out. Teachers have really appreciated it because it helps streamline planning and make it more focused. And they're really appreciating the work that they're getting back from students with this type of choice board. So we're going to keep maintaining this work, at least through the end of NTI this year. And we see this being something that we're going to continue with next year as well.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I appreciate hearing from both elementary schools how quickly you learned in this process and revised and grew. And really, when folks collaborate, sometimes it's most effective to not force the fit. But then when there are places where math can cross over and things align, it'll be that much more effective. So thanks, Shelley, and also thanks, Carrie. We appreciate you. So we wanted to, when we first began this, kind of give teachers a little information on how they might conceptualize a week of learning in NTI around choice boards. Because it's really important that students are getting lessons, they're being taught how to do those skills on the choice board, and that they're getting dialogical opportunities and that they're getting feedback all along the way. And so this slide just kind of shows how you might think about a week of learning from the teacher perspective. So on Monday, you might host the choice board with the success criteria, which Sarah Bryant from Olmsted South is going to talk more about. You might do that on Monday. Your PLC could come together to provide those recorded mini lessons on Screencastify or Google Meet so that there's almost a little mini library curated for students. So if they need help with particular skills on a particular item on the choice board, that they have those asynchronously at their fingertips. And then you might host those small groups in Google Meet. I know we have some schools that are sending out Google Forms with different times of day that students can sign up for so it works best with their family. And then using those misconceptions and using what you're hearing from students on Google Meet to provide additional lessons. And then, of course, we're providing feedback so that students have the opportunity to revise and iterate, knowing that some of those longer-term teacher-facilitated projects may go beyond Friday. So this just kind of gives an idea of how a teacher might think about their work cycle in NTI using a more personalized interdisciplinary choice board. And so with that, that brings us to Olmsted South, and Sarah Bryant is going to share what they've been doing with choice boards at their school.
So thank you. We decided to use the JCPS choice boards that were provided, and we, I'm so sorry. We decided to split it up. Okay, sorry. We decided to split it up based on content area. So every week we look at the choice board for the week, and then we say, okay, social studies will be taking these 3 assignments, language arts will take these 3, and so on. Once we've decided which content area will sponsor which activity, we work on those in our PLC. So if you want to go ahead to the next slide, you can see an example from choice board number 2. We, as the 8th grade PLC, decided that we were going to sponsor poem or song lyrics analysis. But to support the students, the first thing that we did was decide how this activity aligns with our standards, make sure that if we needed to tweak it to meet those requirements, then we could. So we developed a single point rubric, and that was the idea of our AIC, Ms. Erin Yates. And that rubric allows us to give really specific feedback to the students. So we can it helps us stay focused on the essential standard that we're really, focused on the students achieving or mastering. And then from there, we do like a think aloud model, which allows us to create scaffolds and really show the students exactly what it is that we're guiding them toward. And then we've also started adding student work. So if we have a student exemplar, we'll go back and post that with permission from the student and say, hey, here's what so-and-so did. She did a great job with this specific aspect. And then students have another model that they can see. So, we just really want to support them, make sure they can see what the end goal is, and then provide the scaffolding to help them achieve it.
Thank you so much. I just appreciate how you all have taken what we know to be best instructional practice with the success criteria and models and think alouds, and then even sharing student work to increase motivation and efficacy. All of those things you've just seamlessly carried over into a virtual environment in a really authentic way. So thank you so much for your work. And with that, we have an excellent high school example from Central High School. And Caleb Johnson is here to share with us his NTI journey with choice boards in a high school chemistry class. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, Sam. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share. So high school is a little bit of a beast because, I teach chemistry and I work with chemistry teachers. And, I also teach physics. I work with physics teachers. And so we're a lot of times we get locked into this mentality that our standard has to be central, that anything else that anybody else is doing is secondary. And so that makes the choice board a really unique opportunity for us, I think, especially. And so our high school decided that we're going to use choice boards. We had a lot of pushback from people, just how was what I was planning supposed to fit into this format and all that. And, when you think about it, the choice board is really just based on the idea that students should have options, that they should be able to, find different connections to your subject than just, the standard things that you would talk about inside a classroom, and that they should be able to choose when and how they work on things. And so I really, was kind of skeptical at first, like many people, but then I bought into it. I found this channel. I looked at the interdisciplinary choice board presentation that y'all gave. Once I saw the compelling question, in my mind, I had a huge shift because I said, okay, how is it possible that I'm supposed to do all of high school chemistry second semester in the last 6 weeks of NTI instruction? It helped provide a lot of focus for me. So I think that was lesson number one for me, was when you focus your understanding your choice board around a specific question, that compelling question is the key. This is something I'm planning on taking next year in my classroom, absolutely. In NGSS, which are science standards, we talk a lot about the phenomenon, which is, all of our science understanding should be based on something in the real world. And this really it was a stretch for me to try and focus this in this way, but it was a good stretch. It was good. So once I got that compelling question, like for this board, why is water so special, life on Earth, not some other substance? That was a shift because, first of all, this board should be about phase changes. This unit should be about intermolecular forces. This unit should be about hydrogen bonding and water and why it's got a low density state and how it leads to frost wedging and stuff like potholes. A lot of that's in here, but the focus is different. So once I get that, then I'm thinking, how can I connect this to all aspects of all these different disciplines that my students might be interested in? In my classroom, I love chemistry, but my students don't. It's hard to say that. It hurts me a little bit. They love when I blow something up. They love when we catch things on fire. But I try and make it as real as possible for them, but it's just tough. And so approaching it in this method, I've already got if you love math, there's an option on here for you. If you love history, there's an option on here for you. And so it automatically lends itself to that engagement that we talked about. So after I've developed all of my different connections to the different disciplines, then I'm thinking about what's my product. Now, a lot of people have mentioned the backpack skills, which is something I want to do in future iterations, try and work more of those skills in there. I know we've talked about as well how you could make some of these squares reappear from week to week so that your students are working towards some larger project in the end. I'm hopefully work on backpack skills in that way next year. But what we're using at Central is called the Research and Innovation Framework, which are a set of skills that we think all students need in order to be considered Central High School graduates, Central High School students. That they should be advocates, empathic citizens, thoughtful researchers, global leaders, creative and divergent thinkers, and that they should demonstrate agency. They should be able to do their own learning. And so, number one, the choice board is a great tool for us. We're already thinking about how can we use it next year, but make it so that the math is good for math class, the history is good for history class, and we can kind of build in those connections that they're functional across our disciplines in reality. But then number two, we're trying to work those into each of these products. And so my first iteration didn't go so great. It was kind of a stretch to put these in there. My second iteration, if we go to the next choice board, Earth's Waste, there we go. It is, I got more intentional about putting in these different ideas, these different pieces of the framework. And so this question was supposed to be about material science. It's supposed to be around the molecular structure of my molecules of polymers, of metals, and how that leads to different properties on the macro scale that I can observe with my eye. Like, why does metal bend instead of snapping unless you put a lot of carbon in it? So anyways, don't get me started about the chemistry. I chose to focus instead on Earth's waste management crisis, which is entirely based on the fact that plastics don't break down well. Why don't they break down? Let's investigate that. And so after I chose that, once again, I'm trying to integrate these different ideas. For example, I've got them thinking about, for the top left square, how they can, how they would react to this global problem. Where do we place the blame for this plastic problem? Should we point the finger at business? Should we point the finger at the consumers? Should we point the finger at government? Who's responsible? And really kind of weighing that out. And I had my students do a flip grid to try and talk it out. So, it's just different ideas like that that try and sort of bring us together and try and provide a little bit of focus even through these weird times. So that's what my choice boards were about. So that's how I kind of went about making them. Yeah, there we go. If you have any questions, let me know.
Can you share with us how you used highlighting on your choice board?
Oh, yes, of course. So, being a chemistry teacher, I wanted to make sure my students have at least the basics of the chemistry, bread and butter that they need for biology next year. Because, in the end, we've got to know how hydrogen bonding, for instance, on the water board works in order to talk about how DNA is held together in that superstructure, the double helix. For this one, I chose to have them learn about the bioplastic itself, do a little reading on that. So the highlighting I used to indicate required assignments for my students. And then I would let them choose to elect, how much they want to boost their grade up from there. I know a lot of my students at this point are just choosing to kind of get the bare minimum there, trying to stay above water with some of their other classes. And so they're only doing the required assignment, but that's great. They're still getting that chemistry. So my other students are trying to bring their grades up. They want to get that, A+. They're doing 3 or 4 things on there. It's trying to demonstrate really high quality. So that's how I made sure I still nailed the standard completely. I still get that chemistry out of it. So.
Thank you so much. And I think one thing when you were talking about teachers making the transition, I was just thinking how the choice boards really are the very best of backward planning, because on them are the tasks, the summative and those formative tasks that we're planning toward. And so, first of all, having students know where it is that they're going is so important. I think sometimes students disengage because they just don't know the why, or they don't know where they're headed. And so it's just so important that they know where they're going. And then for us as teachers, if we're planning backward from this summative piece and from these formative tasks along the way, then our instruction is going to be so much more focused. And so I think about how it is both empowering to teachers and to students. So thank you so much for sharing. So I really appreciate the work that's happening at J-Town and Carrick and Olmsted South and Central High School and all over the district during this Teacher Appreciation Week. We just are so grateful for all the work that you're doing for our students and families. And coming up this week, we have additional support for you from CDLI and from interdepartmental work across the district. This presentation will be happening again tomorrow. We have some action research in writing and ELA that's coming up with Sandra Hogue, I think at 10:30. That will be excellent. And then Ryan and I will be sharing more about compelling questions and supporting questions, the choice board work later this week. And just please check out all of the virtual learning opportunities that they're offering on the digital learning channel. And we only have, I think, 17 days left of NTI. So hopefully we can keep students engaged, keep connecting with them, and finish strong. So, Sade, it looks like we are a few minutes early. Were there any questions in the chat or any comments that we would want to raise up for everyone to discuss?
No, I think that the people in the chat were just really appreciative to be able to see the teacher examples. This is wonderful leadership at the elementary, middle, and high school level. I think it really illustrates the point that it's not one size fit all education for students. And if anything, the silver lining of this NTI is being able to afford students the choice with their education. So I think that's just the sounds that are coming from the chat box. And I'm actually really happy that we have a little time left because I want to direct our viewers to my favorite place, which is Twitter. And tonight we are having our second JCPS Digital Innovation Chat. So it will be hosted by some of our wonderful school digital innovation leaders. The first being Casey Bishop, and I'm sure if you are on Twitter, you have heard of Miss Casey Bishop, who has been instrumental. I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit hard time talking today. She's been very instrumental in helping people put together resources for guided reading. Some of her work is all of her work is so remarkable. This week, we are actually going to be at 8 o'clock to give you some more time to enjoy the sunshine outside before you come in and get on Twitter with us to join in our chat. So first off this morning, I want to give a shout out to Miss Casey Bishop, who is going to be one of our people hosting our digital innovation Twitter chat tonight, and it will be at 8 o'clock. If you are not following Miss Casey Bishop, please go ahead and give her a follow on Twitter because she is one amazing school digital innovation leader. As you can see, she is promoting our Twitter chat for tonight. But if you get through those tweets and you dig a little bit deeper, you will be able to see some of her remarkable resources that she has readily shared with teachers all over the district. And she will actually be on a future episode for our virtual training. I believe that's next week. So that's something to look forward to too, as well. And you would love to join us and be part of the great conversation that will be happening with our Twitter chat. So all morning long, I hope that I can continue to give some great shout outs to our wonderful panelists who will be hosting our Twitter chat tonight, again at 8 o'clock. May the 4th be with us. So let's see who we have up next on our virtual training schedule. And you can find that right here at jcps.me/NTI. Under the teacher toolkit, we have our on-demand video support and we have our virtual training schedule. If we look at our virtual training schedule, then we have second steps, social emotional skills for early learning. And as usual, these people who are providing trainings about social emotional skills, they provide some excellent tools for all grade levels. So it may say for early learning. However, I have found that a lot of the strategies that they are presenting on for each grade level can be beneficial for all grade levels. So let's see who we have joining us this morning for our 10 o'clock session. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. This is Amy Harper, resource teacher with Early
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Dana Greenwell. Same thing.
Welcome to you.
Thank you. And our coworker Trish is here too.
Well, hello, ladies.
Hi.
Whenever I'm Sade Graves, digital innovation leader with Zone 1 Schools. Man, I'm really tripping over my words this morning. Whenever you all want to take over talking, maybe that'll give me a chance to get my mind together to be able to speak. So are we ready to present?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Are we, like, if Dana monitors comments or Trish, then they can just speak out and share them when I'm in the presenter?
Yes, they can hop in and share whenever they have something that someone wants to ask a question about.
Okay.
Are you going to be sharing your screen?
Do what now?
Which one of you are going to share your screen?
I was.
Okay. So they'll see your presentation, but each of you all will be able to be heard.
Okay.
And then where are comments?
If you have another device, do you have two devices or do you just have one?
One.
Well, can you use your phone?
Yeah, I've never looked at the chat on my phone. I'm not really sure if you can see it there. If you want to just turn your camera off and then in another window, go to the JCPS Digital Learning channel, but just make sure it's muted if you go in another window.
Okay.
And then from there, you'll be able to see the chat.
Okay.
That makes sense.
If you just view it like you did the other video.
Yeah, if you just view it as a viewer. What'd you say?
Like, will it show us right now, or you're going to click something to show who's on here? Like, so we know if there's really people to talk to?
Oh, if you are in another window and you are looking at it as a viewer, it will show you how many people are watching right at that moment.
Okay.
So if you open up
here as far as our faces and stuff.
Yeah, no, it won't show on the Hangout, but if you're watching as a viewer, it will show you how many people are watching.
Okay. Is anybody on there right now, Dana? Oh, she's muted. Okay. I'll just go ahead and go into presenter mode then.
Okay, excellent. If your mouse is hovering over your screen and you see those that little cogwheel, there are three dots. Or there you go, you got it.
Right.
Yeah, we've got people, Amy. Yeah.
Okay. Just tell me if you can see the whole thing. It should be coming up.
Right now, it's showing a blank presentation. So if you want to go back to that first tab and then just hit present, up there where it says share, there we go. And then if you will press that hide button for me, and then where it says CC captions, if you will press on the CC, that way we can have captions, and go ahead and click allow. We might have somebody viewing that needs those captions, and there it is.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. We're going to go over a brief overview of second steps and then focus primarily on how you can empower parents to use second steps at home right now during NTI learning. So the topics we're going to cover are starting out what second step looks like day to day in your own classroom, how to integrate social emotional learning across your daily schedule outside of that 10-minute second step block. And then again, how to assist our families in making the home link more interactive, and then integrating the program in the home setting. So bridging school to home, again, we're going to specifically look at your success in the classroom throughout the day. We're going to plan for child and family outcomes during NTI, such as how families can become more confident in sharing and teaching feelings and emotions with their child. And then the key factor being that during this online or virtual schooling, second step can only be successful with parent engagement. I know we can stream our second step lessons on our Google Classrooms, but again, we want to make it an ongoing curriculum that's used throughout different settings, just like in the classroom. So expanding upon the viewing that families can do of your second step lesson. So to start off, if you all just want to share out, I think my co-presenters might unmute themselves in a second, but if somebody wants to share out what is successful about second step in your classroom up until the point when we went to virtual learning.
And
Do we have
ladies,
any comments?
I'm not really seeing any comments in the chat right now. Maybe we can come back to that in a few minutes. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry, I can't see both screens.
No, I can see it and I can let you know.
Okay. So when you think about second steps, if we look at it this way, or second step, I keep putting an extra S on there. Think about what children and staff are doing throughout the day, if they're utilizing those second step skills, such as self-talk, ways to calm down. So we're teaching them again in that targeted lesson, but we would like to see them utilize those things when they're playing with their friends during unstructured times. You can listen to see if they're specifically using some of that vocabulary from second step. They might sing the songs. I know sometimes when I was in the classroom, kids would kind of integrate music throughout the day. And even if they didn't sing the actual second step song, they tended to maybe piggyback off of it to the same tune, things like that. And then just kind of thinking about, with the success of second step, what children are able to do in terms of managing problems on their own, how often they're utilizing the posters in your room and the visuals to try and troubleshoot on their own before coming to you right away with a problem, so that they become more independent. So looking outside of the daily schedule, I know we have the time when we do discussion card and the puppet script, but we wanted to think about other times in the day when you can integrate second step. So meal times is one way you can do this. I can think of being in the classroom when we'd be in the cafeteria and there'd be a child that was maybe a little bit shy and they would have forgotten their silverware, or maybe it didn't get placed on their tray through the lunch line. So something as simple as giving them power to assert themselves, to go back into the line and communicate, I need a silverware. So again, that's part of second step when they're learning to assert their feelings in a strong and confident voice. So we can teach them that can be utilized when solving problems, but also when speaking up for themselves in different settings. And then you can use mealtime, as just a basic time to start conversations about what's already happened throughout the day. What did you do today that you enjoyed? What's something we did during, or you did during Central Time that made you happy? Did you, experience any sadness or anger this morning? Some kids, that might refuel them if they tend to have frustrations, but just kind of fill your kids out. You can also do something simple like just writing conversation starters on popsicle sticks and taking them to the cafeteria with you, just so you're having those mealtime conversations and bonding with your students, and just collaborating or integrating how their feelings can grow across settings. You could talk about, how do you feel about broccoli? Some kids have different feelings about the same thing. So again, it's just taking the second step lesson and incorporating it outside of that 10-minute lesson. The image in the middle represents small group learning activities. So when you think of self-talk, I know we teach kids to utilize that, like with routines, like I need to walk to the line and I need to stand on, marker number 2, if that's what they've been told. But we can be mindful to incorporate that during learning activities, especially when children are learning new strategies and tasks. So, for example, if they're learning how to sort by attribute, we can put that self-talk into their mindset so that when they're looking for all the big blue shapes, it's okay to go ahead, and even out loud at first when they're learning a strategy, to teach them, this is a big blue shape, as they're sliding them to the side, and then over time fading that to where it's just self-talk in their head. But utilizing those strategies, again, when they're doing learning activities, so that they're more apt to remember the directions that you've incorporated, especially when we start to give 2 and 3 directions for small group learning tasks. And then the last image is of the playground, and there'll be a video in a minute to show you how you can incorporate games and gross motor activities when practicing feelings. So again, you can practice recognizing feelings and solving problems out on the playground, in more interactive ways, where you might have a student that doesn't necessarily attend to a second step large group learning activity through completion, or maybe, they're not able to repeat back to you or answer questions about the cards, but maybe they're more apt to practice those skills through a game on the playground with their friends. And so looking at this period of NTI and then also in the classroom, we had some questions, if you all want to share out at any point, on the importance of maybe setting short-term goals for yourself. So if you're a new teacher or if you've been doing Second Step for a while, and you're just trying to commit yourself to doing the program with more fidelity, just setting a short-term goal for yourself, which could be being mindful that all the posters are up from the curriculum, or being mindful that you're going back and making connections between what you're teaching during the 10 minutes and then what you're expecting children to be able to practice and regulate throughout the day. And then just think of ways that you can be more successful. You can reach out to your resource teachers, to your curriculum coaches, PLCs with other teachers. Learning from each other is the best way to approach it. And I know a lot of times, Second Step, I see a lot of staff members, like assistants in the room, that implement it and do that lesson. So incorporating your whole team in it is a good way to teach that, so that they're able to regulate with different staff members. So as opposed to you being the one that always teaches the student how to calm down, it's important that every adult in the room play a role in the social and emotional learning. So finding ways for them to all participate in Second Step. And I know teachers are doing great with that right now. I know a lot of assistants are going on and reading to children too in the Google Classrooms. So Second Step might be a way to incorporate your staff right now. And then finally, just thinking about what resources and supports we can offer families year-round when we're in regular classroom settings, and then also during this time. So I'm going to go past a couple of these, and then we can share out at the end. So this is just a visual we incorporated in here of the Calm Down poster. So at home, some kids might need concrete visuals, and it helps if they can make parallels across the classroom. So this is what the actual, Calm Down poster looks like in your classroom. Families can replicate that just by drawing some simple images, or if you post this in your Google Classroom, they could reference that when they're working with their children at home and they become frustrated. And then we just posted out a link from week 27, focusing on riding the kindergarten bus. So remembering that this is something that you would send home every week, probably at the beginning of the week, so that parents have time to look at it. And then as their child's coming home, to share out with them, this gives them something concrete. And at the end, if we have time, I was going to go through the Second Step website to show you. But I know Dana pointed out when we were brainstorming for the session, if your child comes home singing a song and you have no context for it, then you probably don't know the words that they're trying to say. And the same if they're trying to emulate something they learned in the classroom. It just offers parents a way to have context for what their children are learning, so that they have, an example to look at, and then they can reinforce. So I see you're using what the teacher practiced with you in the classroom, and integrate that themselves. And this is really a good opportunity right now if students have siblings at home. They might typically play really well with their siblings, but this is a different world we're living in currently, and so they're with them all day long. So you might be a parent that's experiencing more, frustrations and fights between your children right now. So Second Step could be a way to practice those skills with them. And it's used outside of just the early childhood setting. I know various grades use Second Step as well. So it could be a time when siblings could share the different components of their program, such as the different songs they might know. And so this just targets, again, those direct lessons that are sent home to the parents. And then this is at the bottom of every sheet. It gives them a copy of this story card so they can go back over those questions that the child learned in the classroom. The child might be more comfortable sharing with their parents. And then when you're doing assessments right now, I know we're still assessing children throughout NTI. You might just want to ask parents, please report out on these questions that you asked to your child and let me know what their answers were, just so they can gauge if children are still able to problem solve during, simulated experiences. And you might find that a child gives more dialogue and explanation to their parent than they might have at school. So this is an example that Trish filmed her nephew, just as a way to show you all that you can incorporate social emotional learning throughout your different activities in a day. So specifically gross motor time. You could play these activities in the classroom. You could just draw these spaces on paper. So when we have indoor gross motor play, so I'm going to go ahead and show you think I already had it opened up here.
All right, we're gonna play the feelings game. You ready, twins? What do you do in this game? You hop on the picture where it makes you feel, right? Yeah. All right, Wade, how do you feel when your dad says it's time for bedtime? How does that make you feel? Show me. It makes you feel what? All right, you're happy at bedtime. All right, Gavin, you playing? All right, Gavin. How do you feel when you've been playing Fortnite and your mom says, Gavin, it's time to get off and brush your teeth? All right, makes you feel bad. All right, Dwayne, look this way. Dwayne, how does it make you feel when your dad says, guess what? It's a beautiful day. We're going to go outside and play in the park. No, jump to happy. Good job.
So again, you can utilize this game inside the classroom, on the playground. Parents can easily replicate it at home just with chalk. They don't have chalk, they can just draw it on paper and tape it to the ground. But it's just a way for a child to do a check-in about their feelings and explore how they feel about different topics. One way you might utilize it on the playground, I know sometimes some students have trouble making the transition back into the classroom and leaving the playground area. So if you had this over by the gate as they line up, you could just do a quick check-in, jump to the emotion that you're feeling right now about having to go inside. Some kids don't like being outside, or if it was really hot, they might feel happy that they get to go inside and get a drink of water. And other kids might be upset. So it just gives them more practice identifying their feelings and experiencing other children's feelings. So more ideals for extending activities across NTI for parents. And then again, when you're back in the classroom, one thing that I put together that I've used with students before is just a simple feelings chart. And I think this would be a great opportunity for parents to become involved in modeling their own feelings, because I think sometimes that can be scary for parents, or we think maybe we shouldn't let our child be aware of our feelings. Should we experience anger or sadness? But I think it's perfectly normal and healthy to model feelings for your child, and they should know that it is okay to be sad or angry, but there are appropriate and inappropriate ways to deal with it. So my thoughts where you could possibly have a parent and a child each make a feelings chart and then post it like on the fridge or in the bedroom. So some kids that are still learning about feelings, or that don't recognize them in themselves that much, you might have to intentionally teach this at first, as far as, if they don't know something that makes them sad or they don't answer, and then you're going throughout your day and you notice your child experiences sadness, this would be a time when you could walk them over to the fridge and add that indicator to the sad column. So, if their dad was there and then he had to leave to go to work and that made them sad, then you could add that to the chart. The same for each emotion. So you could use one and write the parent's feelings in a different color, or the parent could do a separate chart for themselves. But I think it becomes most beneficial when you refer back to it. So especially right now, kids are doing the Google Classroom, families are stressed. There might be more emotions that are coming up right now. So if you add something to it, then you can utilize it to preview something that's coming up to help the child cope. So, I can see on the feelings chart that doing a small group activity, makes you feel frustrated. So in just a minute, we're getting ready to practice some of your school skills. But after that, we're going to do something from the column that makes you happy. So following up that non-preferred with a preferred activity. Let's see. Also remembering that you can send home brain breaks for the families to do at home, or offer them ideals on just, creating their own simple brain breaks. I saw something again, I know I already talked about popsicle sticks, but those are really easy to create working materials with. So I just saw one where it says draw a shape in the air, an invisible shape, and have somebody guess what it is. So just things that they could do with their siblings or their parents in between activities. Could be the actual brain breaks from second step, or it could be luring the families to come up with their own brain breaks, or the older siblings could maybe teach some. And then I posted a video in here. I probably won't play it, but it's just of a teacher online singing a listening role song. So right now, I think any way we can remind children of the comfort and the security of their regular school routine at home would help them make this adjustment a little bit easier. So before you log on with your child to watch, live story time, or before they start doing a small group activity from a choice board, you could play that listening role song since they already have a prior connection for that. And then you could also, create your own songs or look for other songs. But the same theory as far as incorporating music and building a routine applies, as long as they can find some kind of song online about cleaning up, even if it's not the actual second step one. And then one fun thing I think that they could do is create attention cues around the house. So I know a lot of teachers do this in the classroom. So you might say spaghetti, and then you offer the kids a way to answer you. So if students say meatball, then you build that as your attention cue. So anytime you say spaghetti in the classroom or at home, you want to teach them that means freeze. And so they say meatball back to you, meaning they're giving you their eye contact. So you can build off of that with lots of different things. I used to utilize it when we would do big day and talk about compound words, which I wasn't really worried about, cognitively children knowing compound words, but that allowed us to do attention cues when we would pair words together for them to make associations. And then the last suggestion would just be that in the same way you have the job chart at school, and you might have a job such as a model breather for the student to model deep breathing strategies throughout the day. That's their job. Just encourage parents that another way they can expand on social emotional learning is to have job roles at home like that. So again, you could pick somebody to be the model breather for the day. And I know, if you go into the Google Classroom, I think teachers have posted things from Conscious Discipline. So parents would have the visual on the deep breathing strategies. And then there's videos on YouTube as well. And then you could assign somebody to be the problem solver. So, if you have multiple children at home and they get into a disagreement when playing, somebody is the problem solver, and they stop and they think about what we can do before we have to go and ask mom and dad, for help, as long as it's not a safety issue. And then we went ahead and linked some YouTube videos of the books. I know teachers right now don't have their big day books with them necessarily at home. So I'm Your Bus is one of them from theme 8. So this is just links to YouTube videos, and there's a Pete the Cat one on there. And then just overall, I went ahead and linked in here. We did the student book list and then the parent book list. And I never really gave a lot of thought, honestly, to the parent book list. But it's books that you could use as a teacher to expand your knowledge for social and emotional learning. And it's also books that parents could have. So right now, if they're not working and they have a little bit more time on their hands, or, they're going through some really hard experiences with kids that are really having a hard time adjusting to NTI, there might be some suggestions there about books that they could look into to gain some guidance. And so that's the last slide. I don't know if Dana and Trish, if we had any more comments. And then after that, I was going to go ahead and show the second step website just briefly.
No comments.
Okay.
So you all please comment on how the successes, at least with second steps. And I think second step, I do that all the time too. And I think Amy made some amazing points in linking these NTI days and our second step with older siblings being able to help parents with this. And sure, they've worn their older siblings out, but they can just continue to wear them out and have them work on these things. I think too that next year is going to look a little different in our classrooms. And as you all know, we have to hit the social piece harder than anything else. I think we all need to make it a priority to send these second steps home links home every Monday. And I think we probably should spend a little bit more time throughout the day, just multiple times throughout the day, referring back to second step.
So just for, sorry, I thought somebody was going to for the last, I know we're pretty much almost at time now, but I was just going to show you an overview of the Second Step website, which, full disclosure, I didn't always utilize this in the classroom. You know, I tried to prioritize, like Dana said, sending those links home, but I think there's always a way that you can more fully embrace parts of our curriculum, just because we do have a lot of components and we're struggling to learn a lot of different things at once. So that just goes back to setting a short-term goal for yourself. So it could be that you know, commit to sending those home every week if you're not already sending home the learning links, or that you commit to really teaching those songs. And I know the Second Step has a lot of songs, and sometimes, you know, I would kind of let those die off. I would sing them and play them in the room, but we wouldn't always really go back to those as much. So maybe you're going to commit it to the music component a little bit more. One thing on here is they offer the song lyrics that you could print out and send home. So again, if a child's going home and singing a song out of context, it would help for the parent to kind of know what the words are behind that song, so they can support their child some more. It also has the home links here, book lists. This is where I link those book lists into the PowerPoint. So you can go here to see, these are books from every unit of the Second Step. And then they just have in parentheses, it tells you which skills that specific book addresses. So just a working list there.
And like Amy said a second ago, and the link was attached to this, I'm Your Bus was one that was linked to this week 27. And of course, nobody has that at home with them, because that was before we went out on craziness. But something to keep in mind when we are back in the classroom, to keep that running list of the books handy, so that we can refer back to it, because I know that was the part that I really slacked in the classroom, was ever linking the books. I'm great on the songs, great on the brain breaks, great on referring to it all day long, but never kind of carried it beyond to another part of the classroom or another part of their day.
Agreed. And then so the brain breaks are on here as well, if you wanted to send some of those home. And so just to wrap up, because I know this was about Second Step overall, and I think our main strategy was to empower families in ways that we can social emotional learning in their hands right now. But I know we're also thinking about the bus. So I would just offer an example is that, again, you could use a feeling chart to start to talk to your child about a bus if they didn't already ride it in pre-K or they've never been on one. So they might be super excited, so they might only have that in their happy column, but you could express, that it makes you nervous or worried because there's no seatbelts on a bus. So as a parent, maybe you're expressing to your child, that makes me nervous. And one way to make me feel better and calm down would be to review with my child the expectations for sitting on a bus. So your back goes to the back and your bottom is on the bottom of the seat. So just creating a working opportunity to have conversations about the bus and to express and address the child's anxiety possibly, but also the parents, because that's a big step. I think for parents sometimes more so than kids, because you get your new backpack and you board the bus, and some kids struggle with that, but I think overwhelmingly kids are kind of excited about that by the time they get to kindergarten. So that is all, unless anybody has any last questions or comments.
No, I just think in the chat people were praising the program and how it is beneficial for students. So I really appreciate you ladies joining us this morning to share about Second Step. I didn't put the S on it. I listened to you all. And so that was really great for our early learners. And I think some of that can spill over into some of our students now, because, they're probably dealing with a lot at home and transitioning from being in school every day to being at home every day with their family. So again, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. And I think that a lot of people can benefit from that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So
Bye.
Coming up, we have Sandra Hogue with what's your question? Using action research to hone your practices. But just in 30 seconds before we get to that next session, I want to give another shout out to one of our school digital innovation leaders that is leading our second JCPS DI Twitter chat tonight, and that is Erin Wallace, who is the Library Media Specialist, STC, and STLP Coordinator at Dunn Elementary. She is also the School Digital Innovation Leader, so she has pretty much her hand in a lot of different pots. Erin Wallace is a rock star, so I look forward to her being part of the panel tonight. Again, that panel will be at that chat will be at 8 p.m. tonight, and it will be led by our elementary school digital innovation leaders. So shout out to Erin Wallace at Dunn Elementary, who is a remarkable leader in our district. So now at 10:30, we are getting into action research, which is something that I really love as an English language arts person. So I'm excited for this.
Well, thank you. I'm going to navigate sharing my screen. I think I should be proficient at this by now.
Yes, and you've been on a lot of our sessions. While you do that, I meant to introduce myself for our 10:30 viewers. I am Sade Graves, Digital Innovation Leader for Zone 1 Schools, and I'm joined by Sandra Hogue. Am I saying your last name right?
You are.
Okay, good. Sandra Hogue, who is going to be talking about action research this morning. And Sandra, before you do that, I just wanted to say I seen that you did 10 miles this weekend.
I did.
You go, girl.
Time ever, and I can feel it every time I go to move right now, but I can say I've done it. It's not something I would commit to every week.
Yes.
But, something I definitely would like to do again because my goal is a mini marathon. So
it feels good to check that off and say I did it.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Well, let's get into this presentation. Did you turn the captions on?
I think so.
Just hit CC. Just hit that button, and and we can put it on medium if you want.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And it should start to come up as we start to talk.
Okay, good deal, good deal. So welcome and good morning to you guys. I am here to share with you a session on action research. One may tend to think that that's a nerd session, and I guess it sort of is, but my goal is to show you how it is every practitioner's friend and should be every teacher's in every teacher's toolkit for the way they operate and function in the classroom. I said this afternoon's journey, but we're at morning now. The first session was in the afternoon, but here's where we plan to go during this session, defining action research, especially I'll provide a global definition, but then one that is flavored with AIS with a special focus on acceleration, because in AIS, we have to focus on acceleration. That has to be our goal because we mostly are positioned in a deficit space. And so with a goal for and a special eye toward acceleration. And then the why, like why would one consider action research as a way to address student performance in the classroom and teacher practice in the classroom. Then a bit of background knowledge on what teachers need in order to prepare for action research. And then we'll go through some methods and approaches for how you might tackle action research as the practitioner, some of the benefits, and we'll also fold in looking at some things to be aware of just to ensure that we are operating with a growth mindset that will lead to success for students, because that's the ultimate goal. So action research, what is it? It sounds really theoretical. It sounds higher ed. It sounds dissertation-ish, and all of those things are true. However, it is also a practitioner's term. And so when you think about action research globally, it is the active pursuit of improving your practices in the classroom. So as a classroom teacher, my first efforts at action research started with some work I was doing with the University of Louisville in conjunction with Professor Gina and Clyde, and we simply set out on a journey to determine how the arts could enhance literacy in the classroom. And so the team of researchers included Shelley Barber, who was a classroom teacher at the time, Laura Waz, a classroom teacher, and myself. We were teaching in 3 different buildings, and we just set out on this journey to find out how the arts could enhance literacy in the classroom. So once again, action research can be designed around any question you have about your practice. So I always tell this story when I'm talking about action research. I had an 8.5 by 11 printout in my classroom that had, in the largest font that would fit on that page, the question why. And that question was posted in front of the letter A on my alphabet, wherever that happened to be in the classroom. And that question was there not for the students, not for anyone visiting my classroom. It was there for me. And it was that constant reminder to reflect on what was happening in my classroom. We all want teachers working with our children who are reflective of their practices. So if I had a day where I felt like I had hit it out the park, that I was the best thing since sliced bread, that happened occasionally. We all have those days, right? Those rock star moments where you're like, I'm hitting on every cylinder. This is resonating with the kids and we are meeting with success. I would always take time to pause to ask myself why. Why were things going so well, right? So that reflective practice. And on the other side of that coin, when I had those days where it was like, what on earth am I doing? Like, should I change professions? Why are things bombing the way they're bombing, right? And I would always pause again to ask myself why are things happening this way? And it's critical to have that reflective eye about your practice. And so when I think about action research in general, it is addressing any issue within your practice. It could be, how can I get kids to engage more? How can I have better contact with parents? How do I collaborate with my colleagues more effectively? How can I communicate with my administration my needs in a more effective way without sounding like I'm whining, right? How do I have a smoother transition from the cafeteria back into the classroom? Really general, anything that is a problem of practice in your work as an educator is fair game for action research. And it can be informal. It doesn't have to be a big formal research study as it can be at the university level.
Sandra, can I interrupt you just for a second? Because I really think that's interesting that you say to reflect even when you had a good day, when you hit it out of the park. Because myself as a teacher, I always reflected heavily on those days where it was a problem, where my lesson didn't work, or like you said, we're walking to the cafeteria and somebody comes out of the office to look like, is that your class? So I would reflect then, but I never really thought to, reflect when the day was going well, because, it makes you feel so good. It's like, you did that, you taught the lesson. So I think that's really great that you said that, reflect both times.
Yes. And, it's just healthy practice. And it's interesting because now that I am an action researcher, or a teacher researcher is what I title myself, I can't turn it off, right? So I'm all the time questioning things, why or why not, how, or, how might I do this? In what ways might I do this? And so it really is how I function. I don't know that I could separate myself from this practice as an educator. And so with an AIS eye toward acceleration, here's a definition that I've come up with. It's a teacher, because it could be at the teacher level. You can fly solo. You don't need anyone to do this with you. It's better as part of a team, a collaborative team, because we are better and stronger together. And certainly as a school, you can tackle a problem of practice. And so, but it is an approach to strategically investigate a problem, right? So you're not all willy-nilly. You are really thoughtful about what you're going to do to attack this barrier to student learning. As I said in the previous examples, it can be lighthearted. It could be something as simple as transitions, or making kids have a better, having kids have enhanced ideas about learning, right? To encourage them to be more excited about learning, or to be more hands-on, which isn't to be taken lightly. I don't mean it that way. But if with this AIS definition, it is strategically designed to help us remove those barriers to student learning, because once again, we are in a position where we need to accelerate. I say to teachers all the time in our AIS training, I don't want you to put a feather in your cap if your kiddos gain 1 year after having spent the school year with you. Why? 1 year isn't enough when we're in a deficit. If you gain a year and a half, then I want you to have that feather and I want you to wear it proudly. But when we're in a deficit, which tends to be the case with our AIS schools, I need you to have a strategic eye toward acceleration. That has to be the goal. So once again, a single year sends a student from my 3rd grade classroom into 4th grade with the same level of deficit that he or she entered my classroom in it. And for us, that isn't enough. It requires intentional application of action research, right? You don't just, once again, go all willy-nilly. It doesn't mean that everything has already been discovered. There's also room for creativity for you when you're thinking about high leverage moves, right? Not everything there's nothing new under the sun, some will say, but there's also room for creativity. You can think outside the box and come up with really creative ways to enhance student learning. And so once again, it has to have evidence. It can't just be, oh, my kids are doing better. I know they're doing better. Well, the rubber has to meet the road academically for an AIS definition. Once again, we need more than a year of growth for all of our students in our AIS classrooms. Those who come in at level, those who come in above level, which is not the typical case, but especially for those who come in with a significant deficit, we need more than a year of growth in order to accelerate. Why? Because we need to close the gap. So what you see at the bottom here, each of these are links to additional research on action research. And some of them are really heavy, they are heavy research university level articles that have been published, chapters that have been published in professional journals. And then there are lighter touches like Edutopia, which I love. I check in with them at least once a week. And then there's this guide over here on the far right that I've used to support some of the learning on several of the slides here. It's really the most teacher-friendly, user-friendly. You can get in and get out, pull nuggets from it, and make magic happen with your teacher team or you as a teacher or for your school. And so how does the why, of course, it's tied to the systems. And I intentionally don't have system 1 there because system 1 is specifically about the standards. Not that your act search might not include the standards, but there are direct ties to all of the others, to the 6 systems of JCPS. So there's data. Once again, the rubber has to meet the road. You can't just feel better at the end of it. I can't just look at the end of that unit and say, I killed it in that unit. What's the evidence, right? How are students performing? How are they able to show, to demonstrate their growth and their development in the ways that I have set out for them from the beginning of this unit? So it's data driven. It involves planning. You have to be strategic and intentional about setting up a plan. You have to monitor and analyze the student work. That's how I use the data. That's how I'm able to determine whether we've met with success or not. It's academic supports. And so it could involve others supporting you with academics. It could involve in the ECE teacher, the ESL teacher, the literacy coach. It can involve others. And it's definitely professional learning. And so the power of the why, once again, I spoke to this earlier, we have to be constantly asking questions about how and why. You may not couch it as a question. You may say, my practices in student learning might improve if, right? So it doesn't have to be couched as a question, but that certainly worked for me. So before you set out to address this problem of practice that involves the acceleration of student learning, you have to do a little bit of homework. The good news is we do these things organically as educators. You need to talk to your colleagues. You know what? My kids are having trouble with XYZ. I'm having trouble getting them to write effective summaries. I'm having trouble getting them to perform when it comes to writing to demonstrate their learning in testing context. They can talk with me about it, but they're having trouble putting pencil to paper. Whatever your challenge happens to be, have those professional conversations because we are better, stronger, and smarter together. You also need to read, right? Check in with those professional texts. It doesn't have to be anything hot and heavy. It can be a professional book by people you trust, like this one is by Ann Guga, Stephanie Harvey. I've been reading them for years. So when I see them putting out material, I know I want to have that in my hands because it always makes me better. But read up on the topic, and learning, it just has to be the goal. You have to be open to saying, I'm ready to learn and grow in this. Once you know everything, it's time to hang it up anyway, right? We need to stop. We need to go do something else. We need to exit the profession. I always say we need to lay down under 6 feet, right? Because if you are finished learning, really, I don't know, where is the joy in that?
I don't think
And
there's
so,
any joy in that, Sandra. I love to learn and grow and keep the learning going. You're right about that. That spoke to me. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you're learning and growing, your students will continue to learn and grow. You always want to be inspired. You always want to learn a new tool. You always want to identify your focus, like you're talking about. And really, the more you progress, the more your students will continue to progress.
Absolutely. And that reminds me, like, I taught early primary for many of my years in the classroom, and I realized, and I was that teacher who, right about 10 minutes before they were about to set the alarm, the custodians are, knocking on the door, we're about to set the alarms. And that was commonplace for me. It wasn't every night, but it was at least one day a week. I was there until the custodians put me out at near 11 o'clock at night. Now, I didn't have kids, nor did I have much of a social life.
I'm opposite. I'm opposite to you. I'm the first one in the building. The plant operator would always be looking like, oh, here she is again. I'm a morning person, so I'm waiting on the steps.
I love it. Well, and I tell you, I would intentionally, just work on things because I never felt like things were where I wanted them to be.
Exactly.
Right? So in pursuit of that, the work was never done. That's the reality. But after I taught the same grade for so many years, I found myself saying, you know what? I don't even need to write this stuff down.
It's
I'm
in
doing
you.
This intuitively. And that frightened me, right? Because
yes.
I felt like it was not supposed to be that easy. I felt like I was missing something. There was something more I should have or could have been doing. And so I intentionally set out to increase the challenge for me, the rigor for me as a professional, because I felt like, wait a minute, this is an uncomfortable space for me to feel like I can do this intuitively. It shouldn't be that easy, right? That meant I was missing something. And so I did. I started teaching other grades. I started getting involved, like I said, with action research at the university level. I went back to school, but I felt like that was not the space I needed to be in as a professional. So action research keeps you there. So here's one method. And there are several out there, once again, on each of those links that you click on that reference slide that I had earlier, defining action research. They'll all define it slightly differently, but the main gist of it is you identify a problem of practice. You learn as much as you can to apply research-based action to it, including some of your creative actions, because I don't downplay teacher intuition. It's a huge, real, and important part of this. And then you act on it and you pay attention to what happens and you adjust and you respond and you keep moving, right? It's cyclical, though, because it is nonstop. It goes around and around. So you identify a focus. Once again, you explore some research to inform your thinking, because I'm all about informed decisions. I don't know that we have time when we're trying to accelerate or willy-nilly kinds of things, right? It has to be informed by, here's this idea I read in this piece, and I think I want to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and add in something I knew about my kids. Then it's informed action, right? But you specify that focus and you plan your intervention. You gather the data. Once again, the rubber has to meet the road. You analyze that data to determine its impact on student learning. And then you, once again, evaluate that and you keep moving. It progresses, it keeps going. Other methods, once again, it's a messy process. It's not linear. You don't just say, and the action research cohorts I've been working with the past year, I'm intentional about saying, you know what, if this is something that it's a question and you can do a Google search and you have an answer, then it wasn't worth action research, right? It has to be messy. It has to be significant in size to where you're like, you know what? I'm not going strictly from point A to point B. It's not that simple, right? And so some of the methods other methods are included here. You can plan, act, observe, reflect. Once again, different researchers will define it differently. I like method 3 there, plan, do, study, act. It's neatly packaged. I know what that means in my brain, and I just keep it moving. But if you click on, once again, each of these, they will take you to the reference where they were pulled from. Most of them will. I think 4 of the 5 will. And so you'll be able to see the actual article or the actual chapter or the actual reference where each of these were found. But if you notice in each of them, it's spiraling. It's cyclical. It's coming back around. You repeat. And once again, this is why I say that I feel like I can't turn off being an action researcher. I am all the time involved in thinking about hows and whys and what might I do, right? And so I look at that as part of who I am as a professional, and it's messy. I say this all the time too, I enjoy the wrestle, right? I enjoy setting forth these big problems in front of me, and I don't know whether or not I know how to accomplish it. I don't know whether I can find a clear answer to this, but the wrestle always makes me better. And I found that those that I'm working with, whether it's now as someone who works primarily with principals and teachers and coaches, whether it has an impact on me as well as those folks, or when I'm working at the direct classroom level, the impact that it's having on kiddos. And so one of the action research projects I've been involved with in the past year, one was the cohorts themselves, right? How do I, and this was the question in my brain, how do I pull teachers together and coaches together from across the district to encourage them to adopt an action researcher stance in their work in order to improve their practices and accelerate student learning? That was my big question, right? So I set up these cohorts. I didn't have a direct answer for how this would happen, but I set up these cohorts and I planned the skeleton for each of those sessions, but each of those sessions were adapted according to what I found the participants needed. And in this case, they were my students, right? And so what did they need? What bit of information did I need to do differently? What more do I need to provide in order to accelerate their learning and in turn accelerate the learning of their students? And the biggest feather, talk about feather, came from, and we didn't get to finish the cohort because of NTI, but one of the greatest compliments I got from one of the participants who I don't think we had ever crossed paths. I don't know that she knew me prior to this, and I don't know that I had ever encountered her. But her response was, "This is the most challenging professional development that I've been part of." She said, "But I am learning so much about myself and about my practices that it's unbelievable." And so, in other words, because they were doing most of the heavy lifting, I set the structure. I said, here are some action. Here's a big question. How do you? And the question for that cohort was, what kind of work can we do to support students' ability to use writing to demonstrate their learning across content areas? That was it. And so she set out and I don't even remember her name, but she set out in pursuit of that and was finding great joy in wrestling with that. So the joy comes in the wrestling. Another action research project I've been involved in, and once again was cut short by the COVID outbreak, was work with teachers out at Miners Lane Elementary. I call them the Fab Five. I have a teacher at 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades who are working with me to explore interdisciplinary units of study, so that we can remove the silos, which Heather Worrell speaks of so eloquently and has branded that into my brain. But this idea of the silos, so that we don't think, okay, here's science time, okay, here's social studies time, okay, here's reading time, here's writing time, because reality is, especially in my AIS schools, there's not enough time to teach those things in silos and to do it well. And so I was working with this team of 5 teachers saying, how do we build interdisciplinary units of study in the classroom that will allow teachers to use content areas to complement one another while being strategic and intentional about ensuring that it accelerated student learning, right? So because that work goes unfinished, I don't have the hard evidence in my hand that I wish I had, but I have some photo and student samples that show that it was beginning to have an impact not only on the students, but on the teachers in their thinking about their practices. And so those are a couple of the projects that I've been involved in recently. But once again, it's any problem that you are seeking to tackle in your practices. So the approaches, once again, what's the problem? What are some solutions? How do I investigate? What do I need to test and modify? It's really fluid, right? So you have to be responsive. You have to be paying attention to, why did that go well? Why did this work, but that didn't? Why did this work on this day, but not on this day? It's that active a pursuit. And so here's yet another, once again, and all of these are found in this resource that I have pictured there. Once again, the one that I said that is beautifully laid out for teacher application, use with a collaborative team. It really is a good starter place for thinking about action research in the classroom. And then here's the third approach that they laid out: focus, data, analyze, interpret, and take action. The benefits to teachers for action research, or to the team, or to the school if they are set setting out on a journey as a body, as opposed to a single teacher. It improves that teacher's understanding of the school's culture, so they have a deeper, more entrenched understanding of the culture of their school. It increases their confidence and in their evidence-anchored decision making. And I say this frequently. I have 2 students in JCPS, a 4th grader and a 2nd grader, and I really don't want them to have any teachers who are in charge of their learning on a daily basis who aren't constantly questioning their practice, right? Not questioning in a woe is me, I can't do this, but in constant pursuit of making things better, of reaching every learner, from the accelerated learner who's performing above grade level to those who are struggling. And I have one of each, right? So I want both of their teachers to be in pursuit of things that will enhance their learning, that will accelerate their learning, no matter where they are on the spectrum, right? And if I want that for my own personal children, then I want that for everyone's children, right? So that I really want to be the mindset of every teacher in JCPS, every leader in JCPS. It challenges the teacher researcher to think critically. Once again, I have to own it. I say all the time from the school of Marva Collins out of Chicago, Illinois, if the kids fail, it's my fault, right? And so we can't be those teachers, and this can become, the burden is heavy in AIS schools. We have kids who have been through more traumas than the average school. We have kids who are facing greater academic struggles than most schools in JCPS. So our struggle is, our heavy lift is even heavier than the average school. And I don't know that anyone would argue that point, but we want them thinking critically about their practices. We want them to think not, oh, this is just too big a problem, I can't do this because because if you're not careful, we'll do what I call admire the problem, right? And I coined that from someone else. I didn't make that up. But you end up admiring the problem. So you're over here like, oh, these poor babies. If I just love them up today, that's enough, because they've been through so much. And you're right, they've been through a lot. But the greatest gift we can give them as an academic institution is to encourage their thinking to move forward, to set a different path for them than the one that is in front of them currently. And if we don't do that, we are failing them. So don't admire the problem, because that also, and they do need love, I'm not saying that. If a child is in the middle of trauma, you better love them up. But, and I wouldn't expect any less of you, but the goal is to get them taken care of by the mental health professionals and get them right back in there, because your job is to advance their academic promise. And if I'm over here admiring the problem too long, then it's a cop-out for me. So then I don't feel like I have to improve that student's work, because I just loved them up and that was enough for today. So you really have to be careful of that. And it sharpens the teacher researcher's reasoning and problem solving. And ultimately, the primary goal is what? To accelerate student learning, because we're an academic institution. If we're not doing that, then we're missing the mark. Now, I know that there are folks who will push back and say we have to consider the whole child, and that's absolutely true. But school has been created to advance academic performance, and if we're not keeping that close and out front, then we're missing the mark. And once again, it gives us a cop-out, and the gap continues, and we end up not providing kiddos access to at-level material, because, they're 2 levels behind, so I just have to teach them way back here. We are in the business of acceleration, so we have to make sure that's out front. So being aware, I'm almost finished, and then I'll take any questions, Sade, from the room.
Okay.
It's not, let's see, but it's not common practice yet. So you have to be aware that if you start talking action research, you may not have colleagues who are like, oh yeah, I'm game with that, right? So it's part of my mission to make that part of common practice, but we're not there yet. So you have to be aware of that. You may have to explain it to folks. What is it? What does it involve? It's perceived as time consuming, and that one more thing, but it's not. It should be how we do business. It should be how you consider your practices in the classroom. And you're not turning anything into anyone. If you're doing it for a college course, that's different, but you are just acting as a professional. People, once again, say it's time consuming, and it's not a packaged program. It's not a magic wand. Those things don't exist. If those things existed, they'd already be out there. The reality is they don't exist. And so it is time consuming, but it is the work. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And it's specific to context. So if you're thinking from a researcher or higher education lens, it says it's not generalizable. So the generalizability isn't there, but it's because it's specific to the context. In other words, what's working at Minor Lane, I can't pick it up directly and drop it in another school, nor should I need to, right? That other school needs to come up with their own process, right? They need to come up with their own evidence and need to be focused on their own challenges. And so I'm okay. That's why I put that check mark there with the fact that it's not, you can't generalize it, right? We can't just package it and put it someplace else because magic wands don't work. And, you know, be aware that it may cause some growing pains. You're like, oh my goodness, I thought I was awesome. And maybe I'm not as awesome as I think, but guess what? We're supposed to be still learning. If you're not, then you may as well hang it up. Each of these is a link to just the professional text that I love and that we're looking forward to folding into action research cohorts across JCPS next year. And so we encourage you to be part of those. I have to stop. And this is my last slide. I'm Sandra Hogue. I'm AIF ELA lead, instructional lead for ELA. I'm accessible through Twitter, Sandra L. Hogue, and we use the hashtag AI Success, not two S's there, AI Success. And so if you are interested in talking action research with me, please reach out. If not, look for if you're interested in applying it and want to be part of the cohort, look for that material next year. And I'm finished, Sade. I'm sure I went over a little bit. I'm sorry.
No, you are right on time. And that was just wonderful. I see a lot of people picking up your quotes, the things that you're saying in the chat. They're really resonating with them. So you have said some awesome things here in the presentation. We look forward to having you back tomorrow. Those people who missed out, you're going to be back tomorrow, right?
Sandra,
Yes, I'll be back tomorrow.
Okay.
Hi, Heather.
this is Heather Worrell. You have me fired up. Like, I am ready to go out and do some cartwheels. I love your energy, and I need to spend more time with you. You need to come down to the innovation studios more when we get back.
I'm happy to do that. When I get passionate about something, it's hard for me to turn it off. So I can tell you, I get on fire about this piece. I just love it so much. Kids and our teachers, and I don't know if you were in the room when I was talking about you earlier, but I certainly talked about you in those silos, how we just have to, you know, we have to remove those and we have to find ways to bring that content together. So your ears should have been burning on that part.
Oh, thanks.
Yes. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. See you tomorrow. All right. So
All
if you are just now joining us, my name is Sade Graves, and I'm Digital Innovation Leader for Zone 1 Schools. And I'm joined by Heather Worrell and three awesome principals. We have Faith Stroud from Stewart Middle School, Willie Foster, and who was our last one? Jack Jacobs. I was right. I was going to say that, but then I stopped talking. Okay, so I'm excited for this new session this week. Let's hear from our wonderful principals.
Yeah, so Sade, we're super excited to feature three rockstar digital leaders in our district. And I just want to I know last week was like Principal Celebration Week, so I just want to give our principals some love. I've been in a lot of roles in the educational system, and let me tell you, the principal school leader seat is one of the toughest, if not the toughest role of all. So just huge shout out to our principals who are leading like never before during this time. And real quick, I want to share my screen to kind of set the stage for what they're going to be doing today for us. Can you see that, Sade? We good to go?
It is coming. Yep, there we go.
Okay. And let me put my captions on. Okay, I think the captions should be on. Let's see if they will work. So there we go. So as part of our digital transformation in JCPS, we've really used this model, and we believe that digital transformations happen when digital agility is modeled from the top. And so we really think about this pyramid. Our goal is that our students are able to innovate and create with technology in our schools. And we know that in order for this to happen, the likelihood of this to happen, for them to have access to innovate, we have to get our district leaders and our principals leveraging digital tools and leading by example. After that, the teachers will have more exposure to digital tools through their leadership, and the likelihood that they'll integrate it into the classrooms is far greater. So we have today, let me stop screen sharing. We have today three principals, actually let me show this first, who do just that. They are exemplars, not only in JCPS, but in the state of Kentucky, in how they leverage digital tools from their seat, in the principal's seat, to lead their schools. And so we have an elementary, middle, and high school principal that we are very excited to have share today, Jack Jacobs from Bloom. Faith Stroud from Stewart, and Willie Foster from Mail. And then you'll see throughout the week at 11 o'clock, we are featuring several other really strong digital leaders who have done an outstanding job leading their schools during NTI. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over. Hey, Jack, let's start with you.
Hey, how are you guys?
Doing awesome.
So, thanks for having me. We started right before NTI became like super public, out in the open. We got this feeling, and so the first thing I did was look at the teams that we had. The biggest hurdle for me mentally was what I was going to do with staff that really didn't even have a job anymore. So that was a lot of our classified staff. So we tackled that first. So we have, we call them outreach friends. So we have an outreach team, and then we have a teaching and learning team. And then I'm the technology team. I try to pull teachers in, but they had the one teacher I wanted to pull in and help me has like a baby, I think a second grader and like a fourth grader. And I'm like, oh no, and so I was excited to have that teacher help me. And then I was like, why don't you just, you stay, and so I've been able to do all this, but it's been really fun. For me, this is my cup of tea. And I really think it's been a good distraction for me. I'm here at the house, and I need a distraction. So I'm really okay jumping in. So, and just ask me any questions and I can answer them. But overall, we started with teams and then built the technology part after the teams.
And technology is a huge part of you have like your selected success skill, Jack, where your kids have to demonstrate technology anyway. So, talk about how that kind of supported your NTI strategy.
So I used to be in the computer lab when I was back in the classroom for 3 or 4 years. I did STLP, all the good stuff. That's like I said, that's my cup of tea. I think my principal growth plan is on me developing online learning systems, which we call Bloom Door, and that is our signature success skill. And so we call it a digital game changer. And that is what we've been working on all year. So I personally have had a lot of work developing an online system with gamification to teach ISTE standards, STLP type model, and heavy Google. And so the students surpassed what I thought they would be able to do. Funny, I went in and taught them how to do a vector art. I learned it myself. And I did a vector art of Harriet Tubman, and I was so proud. I was like, and I was telling the kid, like, you probably won't be able to do this, which I really thought, like, my piece was so good. I was like, this is good. And then after a few weeks, they were doing some ridiculously crazy activities using Google Drawings and different skills. So that goes along with all of us that are in technology. If we just give them a start on a pathway, the kids will outperform even what we think they can do. So that Bloom Door online learning gamification push that we did all year helped the fifth grade in general, but it also helped me. So I was able to take some of that learning. I could not bring in I wanted to bring in early on into NTI. I wanted to bring in gamification. I left that in the past because that was a little too much. But going forward, that would be something that I would like to look at, is how to gamify even more. I did gamified by the clicking of the slides that people can see if they go to Bloom. You can see how we kind of gamified it, but I meant like earning badges and different other gamification strategies.
And Jack, I think that is what we're really looking at for summer learning. You know, how can we make this fun and gamify our summer learning program and send kids on adventures? So I might need to recruit you for some thought partnerships. So my question, Jack, from your seat, your school that already had pretty strong digital transformation strategy already. You guys have strong access and you have very innovative teachers. So 2 questions. Give some shout outs to some of your teachers who have really shined brightly during this time. And then I also want to know, where is your team headed next as we build the ramp for the next school year?
Yeah, so I can tell you 5th grade is different than all other grades. So they do PBL, project-based learning, throughout the year. We called it PBL Junior because of NTI, it's a little less than in brick and mortar. And I've been really impressed with not only the plans of the teachers, but how they walk the students through PBL online. And it's been, it's kind of disguises the learning. When you do PBL right, it kind of disguises the learning that they're doing. Now, rigor has always been a question for me personally for NTI, because I think for the rigor that we're used to, you need a teacher hovering over you in the classroom instead of expecting parents to do that. So that's why it's kind of like everything is almost light, PBL light, in elementary especially. So the 5th grade teachers, they've really done a really great job of integrating PBL into a digital world. We have a teacher in 2nd grade, Miss Davis. She created her own site, and the parents love it. But it is, when I think of like rigor, she is pushing that rigor barrier. So she's done a great job of bringing in the tech, but also using that tech and creating a Google site to help her keep rigor up a little higher than what even I think is possible.
Maybe we could feature her next week on a session. I think that's what we're really looking for, those NTI stars. And so we'll need to follow up after this and get her on an episode next week so she can show the rest of us how she's been able to increase rigor. You have a lot of fans in the chat. Sade, are you still there? Are you seeing all these fans?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you want to give some of the teachers at Bloom a shout out that are over there in that chat? They're really Dr. Jacobs fans, I can tell you that.
I think we have a Treva Werner. I'm having hard times this morning with my talk. I think I took it too easy this weekend.
Yeah, Miss Franklin. Hi, Miss Franklin. She's kindergarten teacher.
Geraldine is over there in the chat, and you have a lot of fans. And I've noticed on Twitter, your teachers have been very celebratory about your digital leadership. So they're lucky to have you, Jack. Where are you going next year? Like, now that we've lived through this, we have to do digital learning this way. Where are you going to go next with your team?
Digitally or in general? I think the first step, getting back to brick and mortar, is catching up. Like, how do we do 1.5 years within a year? So I think a lot of our training with teachers and our time with teachers and the time we give teachers will be on how do we get our kindergartners rising up. That's a lot of our kindergarten teachers. You were named, both of those are kindergarten teachers. They didn't have those end of months of school, which are really important for many different reasons. When they come in as first graders, they're going to be a lot like kindergartners. So how do we support first grade teachers? And so I don't have the answer to that. I typically go to our teachers. They are really great. We have a good relationship. I put out some visionary, wild ideas, and then they bring me back, or they give me the path. Sometimes I don't know the path. So I will reach out. Really, with the team, I'm going to give them time to talk. Digitally, I think for me, I've really liked how NTI has pushed me to think of gifted and talented access in a different way. I think now all teachers that we've been through all of this at Bloom, we now have an easy way to provide gifted and talented services, or one way of giving gifted and talented services to our students across all grades. And, going forward with NTI, if we have to do it again, I'm interested in seeing what the district is going to do, because as much as because I put the teachers do all the planning, and then I put up all of the plans onto the site. They're really slides, but I try to make the slides look like a site. So I get to see every lesson and put up every lesson. So that's a lot of work. I enjoy doing it. So going forward, I would like some help from the district if they have something that we can just put up and go into it.
Great. Well, Jack, you have a great team out there, and it is Teacher Appreciation Week. So happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all of those teachers who are tuning in. We were talking about Highland Coffee and how those vector art pictures are posted at Highland Coffee, and that's been really cool to see. Great stuff going on at your school. So now we're going to shift gears, and we are going to talk with Faith Stroud. Faith is a dear friend of mine. We go all the way back to the Ed Camp, Kentucky days. You came out to my school a long time ago, and we've been talking about digital leadership for years. You were the first school in JCPS to go one-to-one Chromebooks. Talk a little bit about your journey and how your work in building the foundation has led to where you are today.
Well, I know my teachers were the way they felt proud of their previous work, because when we switched over to NTI, when they're talking to their teacher peers at other schools, they now realize how far ahead of the curve they've already been. So some of the hurdles other schools have, we didn't have, because our teachers were used to Google Classroom. The kids were used to logging in regularly. We didn't have to do as much troubleshooting with giving kids passwords and things of that nature. So they felt really good as teachers where they were with using technology. I think the blessing in all of this is my teachers are already really excited for next year, because the NTI has made them, like Emerald Lagasse would say, like bam, they've kicked their teaching up a notch. And so we've been doing end of year conferencing with teachers, and several of teachers have asked if we could purchase Screencastify, because now they're realizing and seeing the potential of the power of pause.
Yes.
They create some videos, and I talked to one teacher she was like, Ms. Stroud, I'm making sure that I really make good videos, because guess what? I could use these next year. And I'm like,
smarter, not harder. Smarter, not harder. Love it.
So that's been really exciting, especially since when you talk about digital agility, we're one-to-one with Chromebooks, but we're going to kick it up a notch again by becoming one-to-one with iPads through the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools initiative. And so we're already thinking about next year and what are the possibilities of what are we going to be able to do when every kid for sure has a device, and what will that look like, sound like, feel like. And so I'm happy that they're pumped about Screencastify, creating videos. I have some rockstar teachers, I have them share videos with me, and I'm learning. I have some technology gurus that were undercover.
Okay.
My PE teacher at Stewart, Miss Smoot, her videos, they have text spinning on the screen and arrows pointing, and she's been doing awesome videos to push the kids to exercise outside and do different things like that. My art teacher at Frost, he has really good editing skills, and he put together some awesome videos. They're like Bob Ross-like videos, where the scholars can follow along with him doing artwork. And plus, it's cool that they get to see their teacher doing the artwork. I have 3 math teachers at Frost collaborating on math videos, but what's beautiful about their videos, you could see mathematical discourse, and they're modeling what thinking about mathematics looks like to the scholars. And I want to give a shout out to Ms. Tyson, Ms. Tucker, and Ms. Atkins about their work. I had a math teacher at Stewart, Ms. Henson, she literally had the camera in her backyard, and she was modeling for them how to find the perimeter around the fence using a real fence. So now they're even seeing how you can really bring the real world application into it. And so I've been really pleased with what's going on. When I think about even going into the future, when you think about creating a personalized learning path for kids, and you're seeing the possibilities of what could happen because of technology, I am now pushing my thinking towards personalized virtual ESS, where you don't need a bus.
Yes.
Bus. If a kid had a solid 30 minutes of one-on-one time with a teacher, think about how powerful that could be. And so I'm trying to figure out how could I leverage next year. I'm going to start experimenting now over the summer with ESS and doing some type of virtual ESS to help catch up people with NTI work. But even strategically thinking about those who need standards recovery and having one-on-one or even at the most 5 kids in a small group to make it manageable. But if you could have true differentiated personalized ESS support through technology, you're not dependent on the bus. You could coordinate if a teacher's available at 5 and the kid's available at 5, or if a teacher's available at 7 and the kid's available at 7 at night. You could really create a powerful personalized learning mechanism that could close gaps. So that's going to be my passion project going into next school year. I think that could be a game changer.
And we'll have to have you back on the digital learning channel once you figure all that out. Remember, we were just talking about shattering the silos. Like, once you kind of pioneer that, we'd love to have you spread the good idea of how to leverage for ESS.
Especially knowing that if my kids are going to each have an iPad next year, and the iPads come with a data plan, there's no excuses.
That's right.
That's where my thought process is right now. But I've been really pleased with the work of the staff at Robert Frost 6th Grade Academy and Stewart Academy. And another note, one of the things that we did to help for our parents and our families and households to help make this work manageable, we decided up front to structure our NPI where each subject has a day to help scholars stay organized.
Ooh, I like that.
So on Monday, all your math videos are going to drop with the assignments.
Nice.
Tuesday is ELA. Wednesday is like science. Thursday, social studies. Friday is special areas, social skills, and things of that nature. And then every teacher has dedicated times where they have virtual online meetups that are optional, but you can always get one-on-one help that way or through email. And so I think our families have been appreciative because if nothing else, did you do your math on Monday? It makes it easy to communicate, because when you go from elementary to middle or high school, you have 7 different courses in one day. We didn't want to overwhelm our parents with having to do 7 courses every day. So we try to structure it to make it more manageable. And we use Google Classroom as our primary platform, but they still communicate whatever assignments were assigned on Google Classroom to our teacher portal sites. And then also going into next year, our next big push when it comes to parent engagement is going to be, sometimes it takes you to see it to understand what it is. But I think a powerful piece that sometimes we're missing with Google Classroom is the ability to add parents on.
Yes.
And when you add parents on, they have the option of either getting a daily or a weekly newsletter, and it kind of gives them a summary of what's going on in Google Classroom. And so regardless if you're physically truly doing the assignment right then and there in Google Classroom, next year we're going to make it to where we communicate everything through Google Classroom and get parents signed up for that piece, because I think that's going to be a parent engagement game changer as well.
Faith, before we transition over to Willie, I do want to give you a shout out. The teachers at your school, when we talk about digital agility, they are Google certified and Apple teacher certified for the most part, aren't they?
Yes.
That is just so exciting.
We're working hard on that.
And
Very awesome. Go ahead, Sade.
Someone in the chat, Dr. Erica Lawrence, said that you are her hero. So that's a good shout out for you.
Thank you, Erica. You know I love you too, girl.
And you guys can also check out Faith's episode on the Digital Learning Channel. She's also been on Kentucky Go Digital as a statewide leader. Before you go one-to-one, Faith has outlined 10 things all principals should think about before they go one-to-one. It's on KentuckyGoDigital.com and JCPSDigitalLearning.com. Dear friend and a fellow pioneer in this field, I'm so proud of all of the things that you have done. Thanks, Faith. All right. I know you got makeup on. Transitioning over to Dr. Willie Foster, who is also a longtime friend of mine, and we've been talking about digital leadership for many, many years. Willie, I'm going to turn it over to you, and will you please share some of your strategy and lessons learned and anything that you think will help our viewers?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for organizing this. Thank you for having me. And I'll tell you, I was been geeking out a little bit here just listening to Jack and Faith, and I appreciate those two for sharing. And it's always good to beg, borrow, and steal. And so I know I myself have noted a few things. So if it's okay, I want to share my screen. And what I've tried to do is just put together some things that really the way I've approached this NTI work and where we're going from here. Sorry, I'm into the slide deck a little bit. And I don't think I'll have time to get to it all, but I'll go super, super quick. Obviously just leading during a new normal. We've thrown that term around, but the leadership side is very different and been quite a challenge for all of us. And, I obviously think the world of Dr. Polio and the work that he's doing and has done and will continue to do. But, he met with principals before this started. And one of the things he challenged us to do was really work under three principles: support kids, flexibility, and over communicate. And so really that was a charge for each leadership team of each school. So that's where we picked up. I have really tried weekly to use kind of quotes that are connected to a theme. This is one by Seth Godin. I think most of you are familiar with the Purple Cow or Tribes, but really, Jack mentioned this, that, having staff with quote unquote no job. And so, really all of us, our jobs can be a great place to hide. But you hear the term, the work. The work is really what creates value and the real work reason we're needed. And right now it's kids and families. I shared a quote with our staff this morning where a kid had reached out to one of our teachers and pretty much said, "Can I have another day or two? Mom and dad aren't working. I'm hoping my parents can focus on my sibling." And, just listening to that from the kid, I think was so powerful. I don't know that most realize this, but my time at Mill, or my current reality, is unique because I came back to principal life mid-year. And so I started at Mill High School December 2nd. So what you're seeing right here is I try to operate under kind of compass points to keep me anchored, to keep my team anchored, and I don't want to lead in a random, sporadic way. So on March 12th, actually I laid these out to our staff on January 6th. But as of March 12th, I was operating from what you see right here on the screen. And to continue to do that on March 13th and beyond was tough. So really, I focused our work a little bit. Communication, continuing to market our brand. Mail's been a little mythical on social media, so we're trying to get it out there, really work through the lens of PLCs, and then continuing to build shared leadership within our school. All of that stuff could continue to grow and thrive during NTI. So some things that I've really tried to do, make sure that our people use terms like we get to versus we have to. I've heard a lot of that, since this NTI work started. And I think it's important, for principals to take that on. I have shared this has been a blessing for Mail. We desperately needed to work on digital workflow, and we also need to continue to work and grow in PLC. So I think we can come out of this stuff stronger because of this opportunity. We started a few weeks back with just fundamentals. I started with voluntary virtual meetings. I taught our folks how to get on to Google Meet. That's what we use. And likewise with kids. I used that time to kind of set the tone, time to adapt and process. I remember the first time that I heard Dr. Polio talk about NTI as a principal. I think it was the first Wednesday that we were out of school. And I'll be honest, for me as a principal, it took me a couple days to just kind of process everything that lied ahead. I wanted to make Google Classroom necessary for our staff. We really hadn't had much of a one-stop shop. We had a faculty website, but in regards to doing some other stuff. So that was one of the places where we started, and we will absolutely continue that work. Communication structures has been huge. Our staff logs on every Monday morning at 8:30. We were on this morning. So I linked an example of what our slide deck, I try to make it simple. I try to make it visual. So this is an example. It's linked on here. You guys are able to look through it. Usually I keep it to where I talk no more than 45 minutes, questions, so on and so forth. Our leadership team meets every day. And so one of the things I wanted to share there, a must of having a working document. So we have a place that we come to, and I had to scale this down and take a lot of the links off because it had kids' names and different stuff. So typically these are links. But you can see we've divided, I was listening to Jack, how he's divided his folks. So I have 4 teams. I have a communication and culture team. I have a contact and social and emotional support team. I have a teaching and learning team, and then ESS or remediation team. So all of those are vital. But you can also see other things through here where we're just landing and keeping up with what we do every single day. So our leadership team meets every day for at least an hour. Most days it's about an hour and a half. So just a simple Google document right there to keep up with what we're doing. Who's at your table? I would challenge other principals that are listening when you have those leadership team meetings. Is your mental health person there? Is your youth service center coordinator there? My library media specialist is there every single day. And all of those people are critical for us, and that can continue to work. I have really leaned on department chairpersons. I have a faculty of about 100 certified teachers. And so, there's one of me. And so the more folks working under shared leadership mindset is huge. Culture doesn't stop. And so we've done a lot of things. We did a spirit week. Support, and I would challenge other principals to just think about being human. One of the things that I have been, kind of unapologetic with my leadership team, and then even our school, there's been a couple weeks where I myself have had a really rough day or two, and I think it's important for people to hear you process that and how did I work through it. All of that's important. Jack also mentioned the classified team structure. And, so this is an example of when I started with them. So you can see there's the quote that I shared. I talked to them about the principles that came from Dr. Polio. I talked about opportunities for us. You can see the very first thing that I did with our classified team is I just went through the G Suite. What I learned is most of our classified folks had really not done much, if anything, in Google. So it was an opportunity for us to just kind of dive in there.
Really, I just want to make sure the people in the back heard you just say, as the principal, you led your classified staff through G Suite. The principal did that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That's awesome.
Started with the term waffle and worked from there.
Yes, I love it.
So I talked about, being human. And so one of the things here, I just want to share it real quick. I challenge, everybody's doing these virtual spirit weeks. So I'm like, guys, we're not going to do just like hat day. I mean, come on, let's make this thing fun. So we started off with Male Memory Monday. We did Talent Show Tuesday. We did Workout Space or Workspace Wednesday. This is one of our teachers, Ms. Schneider. She has had a tough semester. Her father has cancer. So, she shared she was down working virtually from Henderson County, Kentucky, helping her father plant corn. That's pretty awesome. One of our cheerleading coach, on For the Family Friday. And then if you didn't know, Thursday was TikTok, and I did a TikTok and I had a blast with it. But I wanted to show people, obviously, I think one of the cool things about working from home is you get to wear shorts and flip-flops. So just had fun and wanted to be human, and our kids and staff got to do all of that. So I'm going to go real quick. The last thing, I know I'm running short on time, is the work our counseling team has done. So share a couple tools. Our counseling team really likes Adobe Spark. So they created what they call the We Are Here For You newsletter through Adobe Spark. It's been awesome.
Wow.
Full of great information, a landing spot to get help. And I think the coolest thing they've done is right here. So they took an old-fashioned Google document, but they are doing sessions for kids and parents. So like this Thursday, a seniors only session. So they did their first one last week. It was a huge hit, so they've continued on to this week. A session for juniors, a session for freshmen and sophomores. This one, guys, was huge. A parent support session. Last week when they met with parents, tears. So what I think people would worry about parents getting on and complaining about grades and volume of work wasn't that at all. It was just really needing to connect and need someone to hear them and talk through it. So shared leadership, but again, technology elements. This was very cool. One of our counselors led a virtual college panel. So this is Jasmine Drinkard right here. She's a superstar. She went live with 8 representatives from different colleges and just talked about life in regards to college acceptance, college admittance in the world of COVID.
Wow.
And so that's been shared with our families. So just a ton of different things. The last thing that I'll share, and before I finish up, but I do a weekly e-newsletter, and that's important to me. And so, before COVID-19, I use a tool called S'more. I have found it to be the easiest way to put things in one spot, and it's clean, as it doesn't take me hours upon hours. So you can see every week I do a 5 things with Dr. Foster. I make buttons with our living calendar. So it just allows me to put everything in one spot. But there's a great example of what it looked like before COVID-19. This is the same tool, S'more, but this was the night before NTI. But here's what's cool as a principal. I want to know that my time and effort and hours are working. So you can see this particular episode, or this particular newsletter had about 1,800 views. So I know people are looking at that, which is kind of cool and nice to keep up with. So I know the question really, where are we going to now? Continuing to stay the course of that get to versus have to, getting back to compass points. I think regardless whether we're live and in person or virtual, our teachers, our kids, and our communities need consistency. We don't need to be chasing the shiny new toy. And so we've still got a lot of things to flesh out. We are working on a plan B. For the beginning of next year. I think one of the things, we're a block schedule school, so our kids carry up to 8 classes at one time. So we're looking at things like using tools like Edmental more, maybe using an alternate day schedule virtually. And one of the things we've talked about, our teachers have loved some of the virtual elements we've added during NTI. So looking at the possibility of requiring that every course have a virtual element, whether that be research-based or something collaborative, or actually something content-related. But really going back to fundamentally this digital workflow, PLCs, and leadership, really it's all interconnected. And then the last thing that I would say that I have learned probably more than anything as a principal is taking care of yourself. And, there's been some days when, you sit here at the computer. Last week it happened a couple of days where I was probably online 8 to 9 hours, and I got up and feel like I had just been beat to death. And so doing that as a leader, but helping your people do that, it's critical. And so random stuff, quick stuff, you have the slide deck there. I hope it was helpful. Hopefully there's a nugget or 2 there. And, I'd be happy to share that stuff if anybody needs it.
Willie, you should see the chat right now. People are just blown away with your digital leadership. And I've been a fan of yours for years. And we talk about Purple Cow and being remarkable. And you, along with the other 2 principals that presented today, really do stand out. And it's just unbelievable. I cannot wait to get this episode available on demand. So as soon as we get off here, I'm going to have my team work to pull this episode so more and more teachers can see it. Jack, Faith, Willie, any final words before we switch to the next episode?
No final words from me other than just, guys, take care of yourselves and enjoy this. This is an opportunity, as a leader. I mean, it really is. We can come out of this really stronger. We can come out of this improved. And, it's a chance for people to kind of position themselves, healthier, learn some things, and just come out of this with a lot of positives. So I appreciate you guys sharing, and I hope folks get a chance to see this. And if you need anything, let me know.
Thank you so much.
Jack,
Yeah, I'm just going to say go Bulldogs because Bloom and Mill are both Bulldogs, although I graduated from manual, so.
Thanks, Sade, for having us on. Sade,
Yeah,
you did an outstanding job moderating. I'm so proud of your leadership.
Oh, thank you.
And the entire digital innovation team moderating and leading this for our district. You guys are the best team I could have ever hoped to work with, and proud of all of you.
We are a reflection of you. Okay, so let's get into our next session with Elizabeth Reed. Elizabeth, are you there? I'm so sorry we're a little bit late. We had some awesome presenters. Did you hear?
That was amazing.
Let me just say, it was great.
Yeah, they're just so inspiring, and I'm just so thankful people are. I mean, this is hard, and we talk a lot about making lemons into lemonade on our team, and these leaders are really leading that, and it's just inspiring to listen to. So
yes, a lot of people don't want to hear.
That was just awesome.
You say, I said the other day, I said, I'm kind of like thankful for this time. And I don't like to say that out loud because people, of course we have this huge pandemic going on and we don't want to be grateful for it, but it has really taught a lot of people a lot of things, including myself. And so, to be thankful for it, but also to hope for the best and hope for our future to keep, moving forward. So if you're ready, we're
positivity, right?
Yeah. If you're ready, we're a little short on time, but we can, get into it.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen
And Elizabeth, I'm sorry, I don't think I did a proper introduction, but I'm Sade Graves, Digital Innovation Lead for Zone 1 Schools, and this is Elizabeth Reed. Elizabeth, what is your title again?
I am a K-12 math coach.
Okay, great. And we are going to be talking about connecting with students using math fluency games.
Absolutely. So can you see my slides okay? And I think I've got my closed captions.
Yes, you are a pro now.
Awesome. All right. So, I'm going to kind of fly through a little bit of this because I want to get really to the meat of what we're doing here and show you guys some amazing games you can play with your students, but also with your children at home, which is as a mom of a second and a fourth grader, stepmom to a fifth grader and an eighth grader and a junior in high school, like I get it. We're covering all the standards in our house and trying to find fun ways to do it too. So these slides are connected in the schedule, and you can go back and look at some of these articles. But the one at the top, the Teaching Through a Pandemic, is one that Dr. Coleman had shared, and I thought was just a great way of kind of shifting our mindset as educators that this is an opportunity to have a growth mindset and kind of experiment and see how we can meet the needs of our students in a completely different platform, virtually and through this stay-at-home time. And then students trying to maintain a human connection with our kids. And I heard the principal talking about consistency and routine and how we can do that for our kiddos even while they're at home. So these are really those kind of driving questions for the elementary math team, and we are excited to share this resource to hopefully meet those goals for our teachers. So why games? These are just a few examples of some of the board games we love in our family. Uno and Yahtzee are ones that I remember playing as a kid with my grandmother and thinking about, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was learning amazing math strategies while I was playing those games. And I've been able to introduce that to my kiddos as well. Sorry is one that's great for number recognition and counting. Uno, of course, when you score your cards at the end, you think about adding up the point values of the cards. You can think about strategies like making tens or friendly numbers. Yahtzee, you've got probability in there as far as rolling to try and get the dice you're looking for, but also you've got addition when you add up the total of your dice, or even multiplication if you get those 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, or the elusive 5 Yahtzee to score. Blockus is another fun one that we like, and it's great for developing spatial reasoning. And I've linked an article here that is from Mindshift, which is a great blog. I follow it and follow them on Twitter and follow their blog, but they wrote this article to talk about the importance of developing spatial reasoning. And I'm going to just read you like 2 sentences from it because I think it really ties in nicely with our overall theme here with the games. So one thing they say is that spatial reasoning provides multiple entry points for children to explore mathematics in an accessible and inclusive way. In fact, many educators have reported to us that through using the activities that appear in their book that they talk about, they've been able to see their students in a new light. This, in turn, gives children the opportunity to participate in mathematics and to contribute to mathematical discussions in the classroom, building their identities as mathematicians. And I just loved all of the ideas in this. I think this applies not only with the spatial reasoning, but to all of our games, because we can give our kids the chance to see themselves as mathematicians when we ask them thoughtful questions about the strategies they're using and provide them with opportunities to reflect on their thinking and their reasoning processes. Let's do a quick review of what fluency is. And I know we've shared this a few times, so again, for the sake of time, I will briefly review. But fluency in our standards in the state of Kentucky is defined as being efficient, flexible, with numbers, of knowing when to apply an appropriate procedure, and then developing those accurate answers reliably. We have developed a series of games to help support fluency, and this lives in the NTI Teacher Toolkit. So if you go to your NTI Toolkit and then click on Teaching and Learning, and then Math, and then you scroll down and you'll find Fluency Support with NTI. And this is where Andrea has a slide deck with all of the game resources that we're about to share. One of the examples I love to give about kind of thinking of fluency is a problem like 7 plus 8. And we know a lot of times as kids are developing fluency, they will think about holding 8 in their head, and then they'll count on, and they might use their fingers or tap out as they go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And they get that accurate answer, but it's not very efficient. And so we want to think about moving students along a path of developing more efficient and flexible ways of thinking. So for example, if that same student knew her doubles facts, she could realize that 7 plus 8 is a near doubles problem. And since 8 plus 8 is 16, she just needs one less. 7 plus 8, 15 is her solution. So let's look at what that that flow chart of strategy development looks like. And on the left side here, this is from Jenny Bay Williams' work on math fact fluency. On the left side, we have the addition facts, and you can see kind of that counting strategy I talked about up there at the top as a foundational fact, and then moving into making tens, combinations of 10 plus a number, or doubles. And with my second grader, we really live in that right there, making those doubles and then using those to look at those derived fact strategies of near doubles or pretend to 10. Pretend to 10 is like if you had 6 plus 8 and you thought, well, I'm going to pretend that 8 is a 10. And so 6 plus 10 is 16. And then you pretend away those extra 2. 16 minus 2 is 14. On the right side are the multiplication fact progression and thinking about kind of how we think about multiplication conceptually as groups of a number, and then how that can help us with doubling our groups, adding or subtracting groups, and thinking about decomposing into break-apart strategies for multiplication flexibility. All right, so here we go. That was a lot of introduction really fast, but I want to share some of these really amazing games. So on the right side of my screen here, you'll see some of the things that you might want to collect or have your students collect if you're going to play some of these games. Again, you have a link to the slide deck with all of these games, and I'm going to show you that in a second if we have some time. You will need maybe a deck of cards, and those could be homemade cards as well. They don't have to be store-bought. You could easily make cards just out of index cards or even cut up pieces of paper. A couple of dice are helpful, and we've been linking some virtual dice. There's YouTube videos that you can YouTube, like roll 1 dice or roll 2 dice, and use those if you don't have physical dice. A handful of coins. We do have some digital game boards in the slide deck that we've created, paper and pencil, and then thinking about the questions that we're going to ask. So let me click on our link here and show you what this looks like. And the second slide here is a table of contents. So when we go to this, we have it organized by the different strategies that we just reviewed. So if I know I want to work on making tens with a student, I might look down here in the bottom left-hand corner and maybe try some of these games where I'm looking at making tens. When you click on one, it'll take you to that slide. So I'm going to show you the one for erase. And then we have the directions as well as some examples on the slides. I'm going to show you this video. This is my daughter and I playing the game Erase. And while you watch this, I want you to think about a couple of questions. One, my favorite question to ask is, what do you notice and what do you wonder? And so maybe just jot down or put in the chat something you're noticing or wondering while you watch this. And Andrea is in the chat kind of looking at things, and so she'll be able to shout out some of our notice and wonders. And then also think about how you could take something like this and use it for your own students. How could you make a video or have your students make some videos to share how they're playing these different games? And hopefully we will be able to hear our video. Try that again. Oh, this happened last week. I'm so sorry. Hang on one second.
No, you're fine.
After that, I have to open it in a new window in order for it to play. Here we go. Hi. We're going to show you guys how to play a game called Erase. Lucy and I have a deck of cards, but we took some of the cards out. Lucy, will you tell them what we took out? Mm-hmm. We took out the Joker. Yes. The King, the Queen, and the Jack. We left all the number cards in here, and we have these. What are these? The Ace. And with one. There was one. So I already shuffled the cards. Lucy's going to deal each of us 7 cards. And then when we get our hands, the object of the game is to look for combinations of 2 cards that add up to 10. We're looking for combinations of 10. Okay. Ooh, this is a good game. I don't know. What's the best card to get in this game? 10. Oh my! You know what's better than 1 10? 2 10. You can combinations of 10. Don't forget to put, if you notice or wonder something, put that in the chat. You spread out your cards so you can see better. These are erased. Those. That's why the game is called Erase. And then, this is 5, 2 and 3. Okay. Last time. Right. How did you know 6 and 4 made 10? 6 and 3 was 1 less. It was 9. And 4, 10. All right. Those are erased. So Lucy's kind of using some of her known facts. I have a combination of 10. And thinking about how those might adjust to make 10. How do you know 8? Well, I have a combination of 10. Oh, you have another one? What's yours? 3 and 7. 3 and 7, how did you know that was 10? Because 8 and 2. Okay. And 7 and 9. 7. 7 is 1 less than 8. And by continuing to play, she's able to use something that had just happened to help her find another combination and continue to grow and build on her knowledge. Now, how do we know who wins? I'm 8. How do you know that? Because this is 2 is 4. This is 4, and then I have 4, and then I keep on 5. And then we hear her using doubles and doubling her doubles. No. So leaves them out, left in their hand, right? So Lucy has 8 points left. I already have 9, so I already know I lost. But let's see if I can figure out how many I have. Let's see, I have 7 and a 5 and a 9. Let's try add together first. And this, just like Uno, is a great opportunity to think about different ways that we could add these numbers together. And she decomposed her 5, and she's taking one of those out to give to her 9 to make 10. 1 out
the 5 to make it a 4 and give it to me.
I'm going to go back over here and pause that.
More.
There we go. All right. So what are some things you noticed or wondered? And hopefully you noticed lots of questions. And I see in the chat, Audrey said one of her favorite questions, how do you know? Yeah, I mean, that's just always the first question I ask kids. Like, how do you know that? And tell me more about your thinking. Or is there another way that we could figure that out? I love asking, if someone didn't know that, how would you tell them to solve it? Because sometimes kids will say, well, I just knew. Well, what if you didn't just know? What would you tell somebody else? And really let the student take on that role as the teacher. And then reflecting on all the different strategies that they used in the game. Some things you might be wondering are how this could look in an asynchronous situation, or how might our students be able to reflect on their strategies. We want to think about how students could record their thinking and their growth. And then how could this provide evidence of backpack of success skills, and how could we build our way towards an artifact? This is another game called Square Deal. This is also from the slide deck. And this is when we have a digital game board. And so down in the bottom corner, you'll notice it says click on for a digital game board. And when you pull that up, it'll open a Google slide and allow you to make a copy. And then when you have that, you've got all the little chips there that you can move around. You could assign this to your students. They could play each other on a shared Google Doc or Google slide presentation. They could play with you, or they could play it at home with a friend or family member in the house. I'll show you a quick snippet of this one. This is what this looks like digitally.
We're going to take our cards, and we have all of our number cards and our aces, and we're going to place a 10 card in the middle of our work.
So I used Screencastify here to make a tutorial on top of the game board.
And whatever the sun is, we're going to move our count on the board. And do you want to be red or yellow? I'll be red. Okay, so Lucy's going to be red. So draw a card, Lucy.
And as we're listening, we want to think about what strategies as the teacher should we listen for? And how will I know what strategies my students are using?
So what's your total? 11. Okay, so now you just take one of your yellows. Count it. Oh, you're red, sorry. Put it on an 11. Now, the object of the game is to get 4 counters on the board in the shape of a square. Now it's my turn, and I have 10 plus 7. 10 plus 7 is 17. 17. So I'm going to go here. Okay, your turn.
So just because I know we're short on time, I'm going to cut that one short there. But this hopefully will inspire you to think about a way that you could use these games with a student. And then think, as you reflect afterwards, what feedback would you give to that particular student and what notes you might record? Because all of this is formative assessment that we can use then to help us plan instruction moving forward in NTI. This is another one of my favorites. This is Go Fish for Tens. And all of these games are really adaptable for your particular student. So you could take any of these and add in different levels of math. You could change the different cards you're using, the kinds of feedback you're giving. They're all very flexible. But this one, Go Fish for Tens, is great. We started with thinking about giving each student 4 cards. And then when I played this with my nephew in first grade, we went ahead and did 7 because that's what he was used to with Go Fish. But the point of this game is to try and make a 10 with 2 cards, either by having them in your hand or asking, in the traditional form of Go Fish, or drawing for 1. And we want to use that math talk. So we have some sentence starters at the bottom of the slide directions. I know blank and blank make 10, or because, and kind of explain the thinking. So this is another one I did with Screencastify, and this was via Google Meet. I played this game with my nephew. He had his cards at home, and I had mine here. And so again, as we're playing this, think about what strategies should we listen for? How will we know what strategies our students are using? And what feedback might we give? Cannot be loaded. Let's try that again.
Okay. So we're going to play Go Fish for 10. So you took all of the jacks and the queens and the kings, cards out. You have 7 cards in your hand, right? Yeah. I'm going to ask you, what do you normally do in Go Fish? What's Go Fish you're trying to look for? You kind of we're doing Go Fish for 10, what kind of pairs are we going to look for? Numbers that add up to 10. Do you have any pairs in your hand that already add up to 10? Oh, cool. I do too. Put those down to the side. So I love leaving the 10s in for this one because it provides a reference for the student. So if they need to look back and remind themselves what 10 looked like, if they have a 10 or there's a 10 on the table, they have that to look at. Love it. Count them all, buddy. Nice work. Give that proud face. We just heard him count all of his. In your hand. Anything else to add to the 10? Well, don't tell me what you have. Then I'll know what to ask for. I have another pair that adds up to 10. Check this out. You agree with me? Yeah. Why? Awesome. Count them all. And we just heard him count all again. Now you can ask me for a card. Do you have a 3? I do have a 3. You can pretend that I'm giving it to you. What do you have to go with it? Show me. Awesome. That's a 10. All right, lay that one down. That one's yours. Okay, do you have a 9? All right, so I'll pause that one there. So what feedback would you give for Hudson? And if we're listening for those strategies, I heard him counting all when he was making his 10s. And so one of the things that I talked about with my sister-in-law is that they can work on moving him towards counting on as a strategy. And kind of like that example I gave earlier of the 7 plus 8, if he starts thinking about counting from the largest number he has, so 7 and then 8, 9, 10. So we're just trying to move him one step forward in his fluency development. Just as we finish up, this is a game that my son, who's in 4th grade, he and I made this one up together. This is subtraction solitaire. And so we played around with some different ways that he could practice subtraction with regrouping. And this was a game that we came up with to practice that, where we dealt out 3 cards and subtracted from the difference between the larger number and the smaller number. So by placing the direction kind of that way, he had to think about which number he wanted to subtract from the other. And then we drew base 10 blocks to help us model our regrouping. And I had his drawing, but just for the sake of clarity, I redrew that one just for the pictures here. We also have the Math Learning Center free virtual manipulatives, and I have those linked. But as well, Andrea has a great tutorial on how to use those virtual manipulatives. They're totally free, no login required. You've probably seen us use them with the number talks, and our teachers that are presenting tomorrow and Thursday, they're going to show a lot of different ways that you can use those in your classroom too. So there's my little plug for later this week. They've got some great examples to share. As we wrap up, these are those questions I asked in the beginning, and just kind of taking this further, please continue to think about what ideas you have that you can share with us and tweet them to us using our hashtag JCPSKYMath. We love hearing from all of you. There's amazing things happening in this community, and our kids are just benefiting. Like, I know it's Teacher Appreciation Week, but we appreciate you all every day. You're doing amazing things for our kids. And as a mom and as a teacher, I'm just so thankful for the awesome teachers we have in our district. So we want to continue to celebrate you, and we're going to Twitter chat again on Thursday at 8 o'clock. So please join us on Andrea's account. She'll be posting questions every 5 minutes just to keep us thinking and sharing all these great ideas. We also have office hours, and so if you take a quick picture of this slide, you'll have that code at the bottom. And we're on there every day from 10 to 11 to bounce ideas around, brainstorm, anything that you all need.
Well, Elizabeth, we thank you so much for joining us today. Those were some awesome games that would surely get students engaged in their math strategies at home. And was that your little girl in the video?
It was my daughter and my nephew. And then you may have heard my son pop in behind me. He was like, "Mom, are you still recording?" And I was like,
yes. Well, they're super
getting hungry. It's about lunchtime.
Yeah, they want some of your time. Well, thank you again. And we just hope to, continue to learn and grow with the math department.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You all have a great afternoon.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and tune in to our afternoon session starting at 12:30.